And we're on. I always like to surprise you, Anne, with a little how we're going to get going here. It's always good to start with a chuckle, just start it with a chuckle. So, welcome back. It's another installment and a big catch up one because we've
Yeah.
both been very, very, very busy as of late. I can't remember when this is airing, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Next week.
Next, what? Yeah, next week. But I feel like we need to have a little closure on the Turner Classic Movies Film Festival that we both attended, but we never saw each other. The entire festival never saw each other.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm just curious to know what your highlights were. I thought the festival was really good.
Oh, yeah, me too. I think my number one thing was The Model and the Marriage Broker. I really, really loved that film.
I heard nothing but good things about it. My friend Christy Putnam, I believe, introduced that with Diane Baker.
Hmm.
I really wanted to see it. Of course, I saw nothing. I didn't see
Yeah.
a single film at the festival. Didn't see a single film at the festival. I was kind of run ragged. So,
Yeah.
okay. So model and the marriage broker was a. And which venue was that in?
It was at the multiplex. I can't remember which house. But it was really great. And I was not surprised that they put it back on Sunday as one of the repeats because it was just
Yes.
great. And it was amazing seeing Thelma Ritter in a lead role. And she plays a marriage broker, someone who helps people find someone to get married to. And she kind of accidentally meets Jean Crane, who's a model and who's sort of beginning to fall in love with like a married man, and Thelma Ritter kind of just like steering her away from that. And they really developed this really beautiful sort of mother-daughter bond. And it's just such an unusual thing to see in a movie that it's really about the two of them. I mean, she of course finds a suitable partner for Jean Crane. And so there's that aspect of it, but it's really about their relationship. And it was just a really touching film. Zero Mostel had a small part in it.
Wow.
Yeah,
How about that?
And Scott Brady was pretty good as the love interest.
So
And
I'm gonna. So what year was this?
I think it was 56.
Wow. For some odd reason, I thought it was an earlier film. And when you say Zero Mostel, it's like, well, I know that Panic in the Streets was his debut. So it had to be a 50s film. So that's awesome because, well, Christie is writing a biography of Thelma Ritter, which
Yeah.
is why and she's been a longtime friend of TCM, and she's just great. So that was pretty cool. And Diane is always good. She's just one of the best.
Yeah.
So I wish I had seen it. I'll be on the lookout for it. I heard just obviously when it gets um, what they call the TBA, to be announced, and those are the films that have the biggest turnaway crowds
Yeah.
at the festival. So those get repeated. I got one of those. The Big Heat
Yeah.
was a TBA, so I did
Yeah.
it twice. Anyway, anything else that struck your fancy?
Well, I was gonna don't let Alan see this episode. I don't think he watches us. I was supposed to go to the nitrate screening of Night Has a Thousand Eyes, but like I was waiting for the tube and like I wound up like running about 15 minutes later than I wanted to. And then I just kept thinking about the fact that you were interviewing Andy Robinson
Yes,
before
yes.
Dirty Harry. And it's like, God, I've never seen Dirty Harry on the big screen and haven't seen it since I moved to San Francisco. And I really want to see the interview. I said, screw it, I'm going to Dirty Harry. So
Oh, good.
I went to,
So you did see me
so
at
I
the
saw you.
festival. Yes.
I thought your interview was excellent as always. And it was
Was
just, what? Go ahead.
was he not just the nicest guy?
Yeah, yeah. Which I had a feeling he was going to be that way. And you know what really impressed me? Well, I love the fact, I hope you heard the applause when your sister showed up in the film. A bunch of us were
Oh,
applauding.
no, I didn't.
Oh, you
I
weren't
didn't
there?
know that. I
No, when
had
she came up, people started clapping.
That's good. Her one line,
Her
her
one
one
line.
line, and it's not her only line in movies, but
Yeah.
she has one line in the movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't tell Andy that I would about that. I said I've got a little surprise I'm going to spring on you. We shouldn't tease people. I mean, I did. My sister is in Dirty Harry. She plays the mayor's secretary,
Yeah.
and the gag was that Harry Guardino kind of hit on her. And of course, Andy was great. He said, "Oh, well, yeah, that's what he did. He did that with everybody." So I said, "Yeah, but he dated my sister for like over a year after that. So it was a little more than just a quick hit on, you know."
Yeah.
Anyway, but I'm glad you saw that. Andy was. I think that was my favorite thing in the festival was interviewing him. Uh, you know, it was just he was such a delightful guy and so down to earth and had such interesting stories to tell about making the film and then about how playing Scorpio almost killed his career. And it was I just thought it was one of those things like this is why the TCM festival is so great because he stayed to watch the movie. So so all the people who were there get to say, you know, I saw this movie with Scorpio in the audience, which is pretty fantastic, really.
Yeah, and I also really liked. It was really well. One, I was interested by what he was saying about working with the theater group, where they really working on being in body for their performances, and then like him talking about that, and then watching his performance for that. But also, I was really impressed because at the end, the kid that he grabs is actually his son. That's what he kind of told us before the film. And what really amazed me looking at that scene was he didn't hesitate at all. Because sometimes when people are working with kids and they're the bad guy and they're supposed to grab the kid, I remember there's one time this happened on the X-Files, and the way he picked up the kid, I was like, oh, he must be a dad. You know, and but there was none of that. There wasn't any hesitation. Like he was so in character that you would never have guessed that was his son, his actual son in that scene.
Yeah,
which was really impressive.
that's pretty awesome. Yeah, so anyway, the festival was great. I mean, my last day was probably my single best day of movies that I've ever introduced in one day. I introduced Double Indemnity, The Big Heat, Chinatown, and The Asphalt Jungle.
Oh man,
That's a pretty strong day of movies, right? I mean, I don't know if I would consider The Big Heat to be like one of the greatest films ever made, but I would definitely consider the other three like best, you know, ultimate film noir, ultimate detective story, ultimate heist movie.
Yeah,
it's like there you go.
Yeah.
You know, three absolute classics in one day, and The Big Heat ain't too shabby either.
No, it's not.
So it was fun, and all of the guests were terrific. I got to interview a lot of cool people. It was interesting interviewing David Fincher about Seven, which, you know, we at TCM we discuss a lot about, you know, films that are appropriate to show, and I'm sure you know there was some controversy about showing Pulp Fiction as the opening night film because is it, you know, not a film for everyone, and is the opening night film supposed to be kind of a general audience thing, you know, and considering that, you know, we've shown things like Funny Girl and The Sound of Music and you know, West Side Story and stuff in the past, it's like showing Pulp Fiction is a change of pace, definitely. But Seven, you know, is a pretty hardcore film and very bleak. But it was interesting that I sensed, and it was in the big theater, the Chinese, and I sensed that the majority of the audience were not TCM people.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, they had come because they had heard that Fincher was going to be there talking about the film. So his, you know, he has quite a cult.
Yeah,
you know, he's like I think he and Christopher Nolan are probably the most cultish filmmakers, you know, for the avidity, shall we say, of their fans. I think that was, I lost track how many eye rolls that was, and but that was a few. Anyway, but
my Quentin Tarantino eye roll.
Yeah. It went well. I mean, it was just really kind of funny because backstage I was talking to Fincher and I said, there's a fair amount of people in this audience who will not have seen this movie before. So I wanted to be careful about talking about things with that film, that are giveaways.
Yeah.
Primarily, the ending.
Yeah.
And truthfully, if you haven't seen the movie, you don't know who plays the villain until he shows up on camera.
Yeah.
Right, because he's not in the credits or anything. And that was a really cool story, but I was wondering, like, do we want to keep that a surprise? And Fincher just looked at me like, are you kidding? And he said something, he said, it's been 29 years. If people haven't seen this movie yet, then come.
Yeah.
That was, so he was pretty careful about the box. Yeah. What's in the box? But he talked all about Kevin Spacey being the villain in the film, which was all very interesting. So it was a good festival. I was very happy with it, and I didn't get COVID.
Yeah, so. I did get a bad sinus headache on Sunday, so I wound up just skipping on Sunday. I was kind of peeved, but it was certainly better than last year when I got the flu on Sunday.
Oh, jeez.
I was mobile, when I was mobile the rest of the week and able to go back to work. So that was kind of a bummer, but because I really wanted to see the Miss Marple movie just because I love those. I've seen it in a theater before though, but I really wanted to see Lavender Hill Mob because I've never seen that. So I was really bummed because I really wanted to see that on the big screen. So those were the only two films I wanted to go to on Sunday, were just the two British films. But
yeah. You saw more than I did.
Yeah, I know. I saw the Powell and Pressburger film.
Was that good?
Oh, it was fantastic. Yeah, I mean, I wanted to see that because I love the other two Martin Scorsese documentaries about film, and that was really good. Maybe want to go back and see the ones I haven't seen yet. So that was just a really great start for me. And, it didn't feel like 2.5 hours, because I was completely absorbed in it. And so that was really cool. So that was a highlight. So yeah, I mean, the things I saw were all like really good things. Like everything I saw, I really enjoyed, which was nice. And I went to Bronson Canyon with my friend Doug, and that was really fun. And it was just amazing to see it in person. For people that I don't know, most of the Searchers are shot in Monument Valley, but the very end scene with the cave where she's running down the hill was shot there. And the really weird thing about it is that hill is really, really steep. Like it looks steep in the movie, but when you really see it up close and how steep that was, and the fact that she did that run, but other than that, had, of course it was Ford. They had a horseman good enough that could take a horse down that friggin' slope, was just amazing. So and then also it was kind of funny because people were filming there, and it was like either a student film or a very low budget film. And oh my God, the woman's delivery was so terrible.
Probably watching this right now.
I'm like,
did you
don't quit your day job?
Did you see The Searchers at the festival?
I did not, because something played opposite of it, and that's why I wound up seeing it. And it was really like, but actually, I know it's going to sound weird. The Searchers is not even in my top 10 John Ford films. And something else was playing that I really wanted to see. So it's like, I'll do it. I mean, I would have liked to have seen this, and I also had a conflict with Prisoner of Shark Island because I kind of wanted to see that.
Yeah.
Which is, but I was happy to see that got repeated. So
yeah, that's really another one that I was very disappointed to have missed. That was great fun. Dave Carter got to introduce that with Keith Carradine because his dad is in it, obviously. And
Keith Carradine's one of my favorite presenters I've ever seen at the festival. He really loves movies. Like I saw a Betty Davis film, and he was introducing it, and he's like just so geeking out about Betty Davis. It was awesome. I mean, he loves classic films.
Mm-hmm. That's why he is a perennial. He gets asked back every year just to introduce something, even if it has nothing to do with him. If it's just a movie that he really loves. It's interesting how many of those actors there are. I was disappointed. I thought I was going to introduce The Asphalt Jungle with Jack Huston.
Yeah.
But that didn't happen. He something came up and he didn't show.
Yeah.
But I've met Danny Huston. I met him at a film festival last year, and boy, was he great. Just understood films inside and out, and classic film. He was just a real hardcore movie fan. Anyway, maybe we should get to the questions.
Yeah, we should probably get to the questions.
I think that might be a good idea. So, who wants to start?
I will start, and I put this one first because I knew we were going to talk about TCM.
Okay, you're so clever, Anne.
I do my best. So this is from our friend Bernie. What do you think is Gloria Grahame's best performance in a noir? I think the finalists star In a Lonely Place, Sudden Fear, and The Big Heat. You might have others.
Anne, do you have a favorite Gloria Grahame? But it has to be a noir. He specifically said a noir.
I think. I mean, I really like her. Oh God, what's it called? It's the remake of La Bête Humaine.
Human Desire.
Human Desire. I really love that performance. Like, I think that's an underrated like performance of hers. And then, of course, this is just like basically almost just a cameo. But oh my God, the film with Robert Ryan.
Crossfire.
No, sorry, the other one with Robert Ryan that she was in. With the bank heist and Harry Belafonte.
Oh yes, of course. Odds Against Tomorrow. Yeah.
Sorry, Odds Against Tomorrow. Her performance that is frigging amazing. She's barely in it, but boy, it stays with you.
And it is very weird. It is very, very unusual performance. And the part was written for her.
Yeah.
It was a favor by Robert Wise because no one was employing her at that point, and he felt so sorry for her that he had Abe Polanski write this part in for her, and she got everything out of it. It's very uncomfortable. It's a very queasy role. I would say that In a Lonely Place is her best performance, the best, most well-rounded character. But I think The Big Heat is her signature performance. I think that's if I wanted people to watch Gloria Grahame and get what made her unique in movies, I would say, yeah, you should watch The Big Heat, because there's so many facets to that character, and just the way she plays dumb when she's not dumb is really kind of brilliant. And then the fact that she's the one who does the heavy lifting in that film of taking care of the people that need to be taken care of is pretty great. And I love her in Crossfire. I just think that character is amazing, and how poignant and she is in that movie. I just think she is great. In fact, the second novel I wrote, Shadowboxer, the female character in that is based on that character, is based on the woman in Crossfire.
Yeah.
She even has the same name, Ginny Wagner. That's Gloria Grahame's name in Crossfire, and that's the name I gave the character in the novel, because it's clearly based on her. And if you even look at the book jacket and stuff, I told the artist, like, it should look kind of like Gloria Grahame. Yeah. Not a ringer for her, but close enough.
Yeah. And also, I mean, in that movie too, Paul Kelly is just so amazing in that film. And so it's so funny because he was, one of the films I saw at TCM that was really great was Queen of the Mob, which was sort of a takeoff on Mob Barker. And he was in that. And it's like, I don't know, he's just one of those actors that every time you see him, he's really arresting, but especially in Crossfire, because he's a really friggin' strange guy and kind of scary. Yeah. And he's scary because he feels unpredictable.
Totally unpredictable.
Yeah.
And when Queen of the Mob was introduced by Jeremy Arnold, right?
Yeah, he gave me a button.
Did Jeremy talk about Paul Kelly in his introduction?
Briefly, yeah. And you know who was in that, though he didn't mention, I said that to him afterwards, because there's that movie was packed with character actors.
Yeah, I'm
Like
sure
J.
that's
Carroll
why it
Nash
was
was in it.
chosen. Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing, but Jack Carson was also in it, which made me really happy because I have a big crush on him. So that was really cool. He plays an FBI agent. So that was a nice surprise. But that movie was very, very interesting. And the woman that started it, evidently, she was thinking that this could be her Little Caesar, like it would do for her what
And who, I'm forgetting, who was the star?
oh God, I can't remember her name. So excuse me, people.
Okay, somebody
But
will somebody will look
she
it
was a
up and post
stage,
it.
primarily a stage actress, and I think this was only like her second film. And she went on to do a bunch of character parts, but she had hoped that this would be her sort of breakthrough role. And she was good in it too. I mean, and it's just an interesting movie. I like that a lot.
Well, I have I was just wondering because I have told the story many times, but there's probably some newcomers here on our show, and they may not know that Paul Kelly is one of the few ex-cons to become a successful Hollywood actor because and not a lightweight crime,
No.
beating to death a guy and going to prison for it, as did the guy's wife, Dorothy McKyle,
Mm-hmm.
who was considered an accomplice because she did not call the police soon enough after the fight. And then so they both did prison time, and they both got out, and they both had movie careers after that. So
Yeah. And also sort of interestingly too, because we've talked about this before, but he became, he adopted her daughter.
Correct. Yeah.
The
Then
daughter
then
of the
they
man
then they got married, and his daughter, he beat to death his daughter's biological father.
Yeah.
And she accepted him as dad, and apparently they had a fine relationship. So
yeah,
I never know.
I got a feeling that probably the first husband wasn't a great person. That's is my guess.
That's a possibility.
And the actress is Blanche Yorka.
Blanche Yorka.
Yeah.
Okay. I've never seen the movie, so I'm going to have to look it up.
It's fun.
Okay, now our second question. This is a tricky one, Anne, because speaking of movies I haven't seen, Eric writes in and he wants to talk about Smart Girls Don't Talk, but I haven't seen it, so I've got like zero to say about the movie. Well, I have a couple of things I can say about it, but have you seen Smart Girls Don't Talk?
I have not seen Smart Girls Don't Talk, but I was intrigued by his. I'm gonna have to put it on my list. In fact, I'm gonna put it on my just watch list right now.
Yeah, it has traditionally been kind of a tough film to find. It was a Warner Brothers film, a Virginia Mayo vehicle. They made two movies at Warner Brothers when they signed Virginia Mayo. I forget what studio she was at before Warner Brothers, but they signed her and they decided to make her into a noir dame because she really wasn't. She was more a comedian and a musical performer and stuff.
Oh, she was a musical performer?
She had made a lot, she made pictures with Danny Kaye, and she was a comedian, and but they made two movies. Richard Bear directed both of them, Flaxy Martin and Smart Girls Don't Talk. I don't know if they made any money at the box office. They were very, very low budget. They were just a slight cut above B production budget. But I haven't seen it, so I don't have much to say about it. But Eric had a lot of interesting takes on the movie. But here's what we're going to do. I think we should save this and come back to it once we've seen the movie.
Okay.
Because I do think the movie is now available. I think you can probably stream it someplace. I don't know if it's.
You'd have to try and find it on YouTube. It's not on a streaming platform, according to Just Watch.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll give it a try. I mean,
we could hunt it down.
I have ways of finding these things, but we'll see if I do find it in some back channel way. I'll share with you if it's not readily available. Okay, so I'm going to skip that one and go on to Vincent's question, which is, will TCM air Angels with Dirty Faces? Um, I, you know, I'm not going to say I hate getting questions like this, but I can't answer these questions because I do not program TCM. I know that they would love to show it, and I'm sure. Uh, I think uh, who knows? They may already have shown it by now, because I believe it played at last year's the rights issues and all that stuff finally got cleared up, and it played at last year's TCM Film Festival. So I'm sure that they're going to try to get it on TCM if they haven't already. Vincent, if you were specifically asking, will Angels with Dirty Faces appear on Noir Alley, the odds are pretty small that would happen. I don't really consider it to be a film noir. Um, he also asks in the ending where Rocky is executed, do you think he was acting or was he really hysterical?
Acting.
Yes, I totally agree. He's acting because it's interesting. I love movies that have like the last redeeming thing a person can do before they die, you know, or in some cases like Night in the City, dying is the redeeming thing. Like Richard Widmark dies, and like that's the only thing he can do to redeem himself. Uh, but I think that, the whole story is set up that way,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that's, if anything, it kind of surprises me that I hear this question so often. Like, did he really panic and freak out and turn yellow, or was he faking it? And I think, so that the hero worship, the kid's hero worship, would end when he saw his idol turn coward. And I
Yeah.
mean, clearly that was the intention of the ending, was that he go out a quote unquote, at least doing a good deed.
Yeah.
By steering the kid away from a life of crime. Okay.
Okay. So this is from Greg from Lake Charles, Louisiana. I recently watched the Alfred Hitchcock movie, The Wrong Man, on Noir Alley TCM. Just so people know, these questions are from October.
Yeah, obviously, because that movie was last year on TCM. Yes.
And slightly perplexed. There was no murder in the movie. Doesn't the definition of film noir hold that there must be a murder in the movie, which gives the film higher life and death stakes and consequences? And what other films are considered noir films that don't have a murder in them?
Oh my God. I'd have to really think about that. So, although uh,
Well,
technically,
there's heist noirs. I mean, there's not any murders in the Asphalt Jungle.
that's a good point. Well, until the end, there are two shootings, so
Yeah.
two of the guys don't make it out. But I wouldn't say they were murders. They were both kind of well, Sterling Hayden, it's not accidental,
Yeah.
but they aren't like the focal point of the film. So that's a good call on that one. But there is no hard and fast definition of film noir. I mean, we have to remind Greg of that. So it's not a requirement that there be a murder, I don't think. But The Wrong Man, what's interesting about that is it's the most oppressive and noir. It has the most noir feel of any movie that Alfred Hitchcock ever made. So that's why I showed it. And why I do consider it to be a film noir, because it's one of the ultimate wrong, the Wrong Man movies. Like, they got the wrong guy. But it's interesting in one way. Greg is totally right, because if you remade The Wrong Man today, it would have to be a murder charge, right? There is no way that movie would get remade today based on the same story, that the guy was a stick-up man, and like the fate is he's going to get nailed for a robbery. It's just too low stakes today. Nobody would care. He would have to be wrongly accused of murder for it to be a plot that would sell today, which says more about the culture than it does about the movie or noir or anything else. But for whatever reason, at that point, Hitchcock really wanted to make a film that was true to life. And it is the only movie he ever made that was based on a true story where they used the actual names of the people involved. I mean, other stories that he did were inspired by famous crimes and things, like Rope and
Yeah.
stuff like that. But that was the one that was a quote unquote, documentary look, which is not true at all the way he directed the film. Um, but it's interesting. I still think that his technique is totally noir. It's you're very much in the mind of this guy who's being persecuted, and you have to watch his wife lose her marbles through the whole thing. I mean, it's a very bleak, depressing story about the indifference of the justice system to this guy. So I think it does qualify as a film noir. I mean, it has the same kind of New York noir feel as Sweet Smell of Success, which is another movie that people, you know, don't always consider to be a film noir, but I do. Uh, is there a murder? There's no murder in Sweet Smell of Success. There's a example of one right there. Anyway, so it's an interesting question, but when I thought about this, I realized, yeah, if they ever remade this, it's a murder charge, not a robbery. Am I going?
Okay, you're going. Sorry. Okay. I know.
Here's our pal, Michael, again, Post Falls, Idaho. It's not a show unless Michael weighs in with a question. The 1951 noir, I Was a Communist for the FBI, a film that I calling it a film noir is a bit of a stretch, if you ask me. Based on a series of articles that appeared in the Saturday Evening Post, written by the real life undercover protagonist, Matt Cvetic, played by Frank Lovejoy in the movie, is a straight out propaganda piece. Since, as Eddie says in his book, every studio was making one, was this Hollywood's gesture toward appeasing HUAC, which had attacked so many actors, writers, and directors? What are some of the other similar anti-communist noirs of the same period? Okay, the weirdest thing about I Was a Communist for the FBI, this is kind of famous, is it was nominated for an Academy Award as Best Documentary. And it was completely fictional.
Yeah.
So wow. If you ever want to know how screwed up the Oscars are, there's Exhibit A as far as I'm concerned. That would never happen again, but as evidence of how weird that period was in American history, there you go. And that guy, Matt Cvetic, was not a reliable character at all. And yeah, I wrote about him somewhere. I can't remember where, but I've said all I need to say about that character. Yeah, every studio, I think, did make one, but I certainly don't think it was making these films was a gesture of appeasement to HUAC, because there were political machinations behind the scenes, but when it came to making movies, they made movies they thought they could make money with. I mean, that was basically it. And if they thought there was a market for anti-communist films, they weren't making it to appease somebody. They were making it to make money because they thought that was a possibility. I'm trying to remember it was Marie Windsor. I'm just finishing up the manuscript for the new version of Dark City Dames that's going to be coming out next year. And there's this section in there where Marie talks about how upset she was because she had made this picture at Republic called Hellfire that was a Western that was spectacular role for her, and she is tremendous in it. It's like the ultimate Marie Windsor movie in a sense, because she liked Westerns more than film noir, honestly. But the movie died because Herbert Yates, the head of Republic Pictures, put all of his promotional money into The Red Menace,
Oh
which was a
God.
film Republic made that was an anti-communist picture. So The Red Menace was one, and then The Woman on Pier 13, aka I Married a Communist, which is, by the way, coming up soon on Noir Alley. Um, Talk about a curio from the period. Holy cow. Um, Shack Out on 101 is the
Yeah.
goofiest.
That's
It's
a
the
fun movie.
goofiest anti-communist movie ever made.
I saw that in at my first video store job. A woman that I worked with adored that movie, so she got me to watch it.
Because it is the screwballiest movie imaginable. I have no idea what the people who made that film, what they were thinking,
I,
and whether they were being serious or just goofing off. Like, there's a
it can't
love
have been
scene.
serious.
The love scene when Frank Lovejoy and Terry Moore have this love scene, and they're reciting the Bill of Rights to each other and then the weightlifting scene with Lee Marvin and Keenan Wynn where they're lifting weights, and it's like, what the hell is this?
I think it was a satire.
Well, so did I, and I had the discomforting experience of introducing this film at the Palm Springs Noir Festival several years ago, and Terry Moore was the guest, and Terry Moore didn't. She wasn't in on the joke or something. She didn't. She thought the movie was serious, and I thought the movie was like, it's probably the campiest quote unquote film noir that there is, and so that really surprised me that she didn't get why the audience was laughing at this stuff, and it was like, holy cow. Anyway, okay, Terry.
But it's always weird every time we talk about Frank Lovejoy, because I always think of him as a radio actor. So whenever he pops up in anything, he's a good screen actor. I'm not knocking him, but I just always, I guess, because I knew of him more as a radio actor, and then he started showing up in films. Like, oh, he does movie acting too.
And he has really grown on me over the years. I mean, when you're young, you go for the hot shit actors, Sorry, the Bogarts, Widmarks, Robert Ryan, people like that. And then you think Frank Lovejoy is always kind of a dud in the movies, but then you really start appreciating and Try and Get Me, he just gives an absolutely amazing performance. So anyway, yeah, very underrated actor.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll do this one.
I think it's you. Yes.
Yeah, this is from Joan. In case people wondering why we're so confused, is I usually do the odd and he usually does the even, but we skipped one.
Yeah, we skipped one. That's right.
So now we're kind of
now we don't know what the hell we're doing.
Order. Yeah, sorry about this, guys. So from Joan. Last night we watched His Kind of Woman with Robert Mitchum and Jane Russell. It was a wild ride. We looked up Eddie's 2019 intro to the film and after film comments, which filled a lot of gaps and was so interesting. It occurs to me that Howard Hughes was the Elon Musk of his time. Rich, micromanages businesses, causes extra money to be spent, with the outcome dubious. Hughes was vindictive, such as blacklisting women who rejected him, like Jane Greer. The parallels go on and on. Thoughts?
I think that's unfair to Howard Hughes.
That's what I was thinking too.
Elon Musk didn't make the first movie to win Best Picture in the Oscars. Howard Hughes, something went wrong with him. I think it was the crashing of the X1. And then after that he was not crazy before he was crazy rich.
Yeah.
But I don't think he was insane until he crashed a plane and was partially disfigured and grew the mustache and everything. He was no longer the boyish Howard Hughes after that plane crash. And I think he went kind of crazy after that. I mean, his stewardship of RKO was so incredibly bad, but it's just because he was a strange guy in Hollywood. surrounded by so many people that are of interest
Mm-hmm.
that you know these stories. But I don't know if Howard Hughes is that different than a bunch of billionaire type guys who think they're infallible because they have all this money. But you know, when, like I say, when Elon Musk produces something of value, and I would say that, you know, if you look into, you know, Teslas and stuff like that, he didn't design them.
Yeah.
You know, he didn't create those cars. He's just getting rich off of it. You know, he didn't create Twitter. He just bought it and gave it a stupid new name. So he's not producing much of value. He's just an incredibly rich dude who throws his money around stupidly. That's, you know,
Yeah.
well, it's obvious I'm never going to get a job with Elon Musk now, but
I don't
so
want to
be
work for
it.
Elon Musk. That's
So be
fine.
it. You know, yeah.
Okay. You do the next one.
Okay.
7.
Uh, I see what you did here. You got. I became a fan of Jane Russell after seeing her in the first two noirs she did with Robert Mitchum, His Kind of Woman in Macau. Finally got to see the Las Vegas Story, her third film. I don't know if it was her third film, but
I think her third film noir.
okay. A side story common to His Kind of Woman in Las Vegas involves a young couple who get into trouble and are then helped out by the protagonist in both movies. In both movies, the young bride thanks the protagonist by kissing him on the lips with the consent of her groom and in front of Jane Russell's character. For both movies, the scenes avoid being too cringy, and yet they seemed awkward for their inclusion. Was it just a movie cliche of the time period to make the protagonist seem more heroic and attractive to a younger woman? I know that Howard, oh, here's the Howard Hughes. I know Howard Hughes produced all three and was notorious for his meddling, and I wonder if he had a hand in it. I don't think we can blame Howard Hughes for that one. What are your thoughts? Are you aware of any interesting behind the scenes trivia for these movies that you can share? Well, if uh, I'm going to direct, that's John and Margie in Claremont, California. As Joan said, you can find the intros and outros to His Kind of Woman on YouTube, where I tell the whole, I won't relate the whole story now, but the backstory of the making of that film is like a classic Hollywood story. I don't really know much about the Las Vegas story, more about the Paul Jericho's involvement in the screenplay for that, which was not a pretty picture. Um, but the thing about the kiss, that's just always been kind of a, it's weird. Don't you think that in Hollywood that was just like considered for whatever reason almost a de rigueur kind of thing, that the leading man or the leading woman, there had to be some kind of either a hug or a kiss or an embrace or something at the end of the film that I'm not entirely sure what the purpose of it was. And while now I guess it looks cringy to an audience, it wasn't at the time, I don't believe. You know, I mean, Humphrey Bogart with Audrey Hepburn in Sabrina is like all kinds of wrong now, but it's not back then, you know. So I'm not sure. I haven't seen the. I can't remember. I've seen Las Vegas Story, but I just cannot remember that ending right now. So I'd have to watch it again to see if it's cringeworthy.
Yeah,
What's
I
your
don't. I mean, I think it was just part of the time, you know, and just to kind of. I don't know. It feels like I have seen that in movies as well, where there's that like chase kiss between the minor character and the main character, you know, kind of thing. But this sounds really like when she talked about it, I was trying to think of like other movies I've seen that in, and it sounds familiar, but I can't put I don't know.
My
Because
favorite, of course, in that regard is The Hidden Room, where Monty comes in at the end and jumps up on the bed and starts kissing the hero, you know. And
yeah.
it, People who haven't seen the movie are wondering what the hell I'm talking about now, but it's Monty is not a human being.
He is not. Oh, I love that movie so much. Everyone needs to go watch that.
Yeah, it's fantastic. But it also reminds me, I was just, these stories are fresh in my mind because I just did this Dark City Dames manuscript, and there's a great story that Jane Greer tells about making The Big Steal with Robert Mitchum, and she didn't know it, but Don Siegel would watch her and Robert Mitchum interacting together on the streets in Mexico. And he had the second unit film them just hanging out. And then at the end of the movie, where the script called for them to like have the typical Hollywood embrace, Siegel put that footage in instead because he said it felt so real and so natural, and their chemistry was so honest that he said, this is better than this phony Hollywood kiss at the end. Let's just show them hanging out, enjoying each other's company, which I thought was really great, which is the way Jane described her relationship with Mitchum anyway. It wasn't a romantic thing. It was more a brother sister kind of thing. And they really enjoyed each other. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah. And definitely like Jane Russell and him had and he had that kind of relationship with Marilyn Monroe as well.
Yeah.
They were just really chummy. And
Deborah Carr, he was, I think he might've kind of been in love with Deborah Carr, but
their chemistry is amazing.
Women just dug him, and partly it was because he was Robert Mitchum, right? I mean, what do you have to say? But he just had that easygoing vibe, and he was very protective of actresses, like Gene Simmons and Angel Face and Jane Greer, who was, Howard Hughes was not a good influence on her. Anyway, okay, is it me now?
It's you now.
Okay, Jan from Stockholm sends in a question here. In 1948, this is kind of a long one.
Yeah.
In 1948, Joseph Mankiewicz directed Escape with Rex Harrison and Peggy Cummins. As I understand it, Mankiewicz saw this film as a stepping stone on his way to becoming a real auteur, which he achieved with Letter to Three Wives the following year. I guess this explains why Escape has been so overlooked, or do you have any other explanation? But he saw the film he directed before Escape, The Ghost and Mrs. Muir, the same way, and that film is often considered one of the best films to come out of the Hollywood studio system and is loved by many fans of classic Hollywood films. All this is Jan's way of saying, why has there been no DVD release of Escape? All the other noirish films by Mankiewicz were released on DVD, but not Escape. He wants to know if this somehow has to do with the heirs to the writer James Galsworthy. I don't actually know the answer to that. I'm gonna look it up. There's a few possible reasons for that. It could be a rights issue. Also, in some cases, it's weird that people just don't ask for the movie. I mean, it's weird, but that has been the case. I remember years ago, Bob O'Neill, who was in charge of the vault at Universal, somebody had uncovered this movie. You may have seen it. I showed it at Noir City in San Francisco, called Laughter in Hell. That was a movie with Pat O'Brien, a pre-code movie with Pat O'Brien that was based on a novel by Jim Tully, the famous hobo novelist, Jim Tully. And when the film got shown, all this stuff was written about what a discovery it was. It's finally been unearthed after all this time. And then Bob said to me, nobody asked for it. He said, it's been here the whole time, and that's why we didn't even have to strike a new print, because the print was in perfect condition because no one has asked for it. So, I mean, it's possible that that's the same thing with Escape, that they just they go right around it, right?
Yeah.
Because the movie that the noir that Jan is not mentioning here is Somewhere in the Night, which was sort of Mankiewicz's. That was really the film that where he first said, "I can do it all," because he kind of produced it, worked on the screenplay for it and directed it, and that in some ways is his most certifiable film noir. You know, uh, it's interesting. I mean, Rex Harrison is not an actor who has aged well. I don't mean that his performances are bad. I mean, Unfaithfully Yours is one of the great comic performances ever. But modern audiences don't look for Rex Harrison movies, right?
Yeah.
If anything, they would look because it was one of another Peggy Cummins movie that she made in America. And there weren't that many. Um, Moss Rose is another one. Peggy did, except for Gun Crazy, Peggy mostly did like noir adjacent films like Moss Rose and Escape and stuff like that. So I'm not exactly sure why it hasn't come back around. But I'll see if I can find out because I mean, I am kind of curious. I wonder if it's ever been shown on TCM.
Mm. Okay.
Me again? No,
No,
you.
no, it's me. Nor we changed places again.
Yeah.
Nor not that darn cat. That's from David.
That darn cat. I know why David is. I think I know why David is asking this question because That Darn Cat is based on a story by the Gordons, Gordon, and Mildred Gordon, who wrote the book that the movie Down Three Dark Streets is based on. Gordon worked for the FBI, and they were both writers. They met at Arizona State University, I believe, and wrote as a team. And their most famous noir is Experiment in Terror
Okay.
that they wrote, and then they wrote about this like crime solving cat not long after Experiment in Terror, and it was turned into a popular movie. But I think this is a gag question that
I think
David
so.
has sent in. No, but I'm gonna. I have to qualify that by saying I've never seen That Darn Cat, so I can't. Who knows? It may be like an undiscovered cat noir, chat noir
I mean, it's
classic.
definitely around a crime. So
Yeah,
there's
there's
that.
a
I mean,
crime in
it's
it,
a crime
but
story, but that's all I have not seen that.
somehow to
It's
me
just,
that's like you know people say are superhero movies, can they be noir? And my quick answer is there is no latex in noir.
yeah.
No latex suits in noir. Uh, so also, like, I don't know. There are plenty of cats in noir, but as the crime solver, I don't know. Okay, now last one, Joe from San Francisco. This is for you.
Hello, Joe.
It's a Columbo question for Anne. Which Columbo villain do you most wish you could have gotten away with it? Which Columbo villain do you wish had gotten away with it? He has a suggestion, but I'm going to let you answer this before we
Yeah, because I
spoil it.
do want to talk about his answers as well.
Oh,
So
okay. Well, can I say that?
yeah, let's do that, and then I'll talk about
Okay,
mine.
the ones he wanted to get away with it were Johnny Cash, just ahead of Trish Vanderveer.
Yeah, and with
I think
John,
I've seen the Johnny Cash one. I don't know the Trish
Ida
Vanderveer one.
Lupino's in it. He's married to Ida Lupino.
Wow, I got to catch up on my Columbos.
Yeah, you need to. That's a great one. But okay, so with the Johnny Cash one, no, I didn't want him to get away with it because he's one of the few killers that begins to feel guilt. And it's kind of interesting when he's caught. I mean, this isn't a surprise he gets caught at the end, right? Because Columbo
You're
always
not
says
giving
the
anything
same
away, yeah.
thing. But one of the things he says to Columbo, and they have this wonderful scene at the end talking to each other, is Columbo says to him, I think he would have confessed eventually. that it was just a matter of time.
Yeah.
He couldn't live with what he did, which is very unusual. And with Trish Van Devere, I mean, you are empathetic to her because she plays a television producer, and there's like a lot of sexism because she works in television as a producer and a woman in the 70s. So you do have this empathy for her because of that, because she's kind of getting, screwed by the system, and it is because she's a woman. So she's empathetic, but she still fucking killed somebody. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like Hercule Poirot. I do not approve of murder. I would say I'm going to be extremely vague about this because I don't want to give it away. There is one person that does get away with murder over the entire course of Columbo.
Oh, well, now you have to be careful here, Anne.
Right. So I'm going to be careful. But because of the circumstances, that was absolutely the right thing.
Okay.
And I can't get into it because if you have not seen that episode, it's actually my favorite episode of Columbo. But I don't want to give anything. I don't want to talk about
And so you can't
away.
name the actor because that would give it away. So,
Yeah. So I don't want to even name the actor or the circumstances or anything because it was really surprising. Because that's the only time it happens.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think for the people that the one that comes close for me is probably the one with Ruth Gordon. Because her niece was she's certain that her niece's husband murdered her for her money, and she kills him. And it's really interesting because at one point Columbo is giving the speech at a women's club. She kind of tricks him into it, and he says, sometimes I even like the murderer, but I put them in jail anyway.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a
Of
warning
course.
to her that, like, look, I might like you. So yeah, and I think it's weird because like one of the people that like a lot of people have empathy for is Donald Pleasance, because he's amazing in this episode where he plays this wine connoisseur and his half brother's going to sell the winery and stuff. So he kills him, and a lot of people like have sympathy for him. But the way he kills his stepbrother is, if you think about it, is really friggin' horrendous. And I think people just don't connect that. And it's like, no, he left the guy in an conditions, knocked him conscious, put him in a wine cellar, turned off the air conditioning in Southern California, and took off. And basically, the guy died of dehydration over the course of 3 days, which is why I'm not sympathetic towards him, because it's actually one of the worst murders. But they don't really make a point of that. So I think maybe people miss that. It's like, why are you guys sympathetic to him? Not only, I mean, he killed someone, but he also killed them, and that's one of the most brutal murders in Columbo.
Mm. And didn't you say that your favorite movie at Noir City was Strong Room? Was that you that said that?
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
Strong Room.
Similar plot,
Yeah.
locking them in the bank vault.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, that'd be a
Interesting.
terrible way to die, but yeah, and Strong Room, God, Strong Room's great. Everybody needs to watch that. I loved that movie. That was fantastic. Plus,
I have another one for you by the same guy. It's called The Man in the Back Seat. I have a copy of it right over here.
okay.
I will get it to you because it's you may be able to find it somewhere, but it's almost as good. But it's a lot of the same crew, same directors, a lot of the same actors.
We'll see how many number twos from The Prisoner are in it.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
if people don't know, like when I watched The Strong Room, I was like, oh my God, two of the people who played number twos from the TV show The Prisoner are in that film.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was really fun because one guy was like, he really seems familiar. Go, oh, no, who's one? And I was looking at the other guy going, oh my God, he was also in
He was also in it.
number
Yeah.
two from The Prisoner. It was amazing. I mean, it was a good movie anyway. That was just sort of the cherry for me.
Did you always think that in The Prisoner, you watched all the Prisoner shows, right?
Multiple times, yeah.
Yes. Did you think that the whole idea of the show was given away right in the very beginning, when with the question when he says, "Who is number one?" and they say, "You are number 6." And it's like, it's all about how the inflection is done in the sentence.
Yeah.
You are number 6.
If he had
And
a,
it's like,
that's why commas are important, right? If you'd seen that spelled
exactly.
out, you would have known that. But yeah, I think
Exactly.
definitely, and I think that was intentional.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
thought that way. It didn't occur to me until much later on, but it's like, oh God, the whole time the answer's been sitting right there. Sorry if that was a spoiler for you youngsters who have no idea about The Prisoner. I thought I
Alex,
saw something about a remake being done.
they did a remake with Jim Caviezel, which I never watched. But they did.
Huh.
Yeah, I never
I
saw it. I
didn't
mean,
know
I kind
that.
of like Jim Caviezel. I might just check it out at some point. Alex Cox wrote an entire book about the Prisoner TV series.
I'm learning so much from this episode.
It's good.
I would
it's
I
a
would
really good
expect so.
book.
Did I ever mention in any of the previous things when you were talking about Columbo and like the people, you want to see them get away with it, but it's still murder? Did we ever talk about the series Bad Sisters?
Mhm.
We did talk about that.
Which I
Okay.
would like to see.
Okay, yeah,
I
it's
haven't
Apple
watched
TV.
it yet.
Oh, this reminds me. This is how we're going to go out tonight because I'm going to shortstop a million questions that are going to be coming
Okay.
in the next month. Okay, because all these people are going to write in and say, "What did we think of Sugar, the series Sugar with Colin Farrell, right? Which is a private eye noir inspired private eye show. Have you seen any of this?
No.
Okay. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Mhm.
Okay. Um, so the show is interesting. I will just say this. I think a couple of years ago, I was contacted by somebody from Apple wanting to pay me a consultancy fee for an unnamed show that Apple TV was producing that they said is in your area of expertise. And they wanted to set up a meeting where I would act as a consultant to this thing. But I declined to do it because of Apple's contracts that basically stipulate that everything I would say to them they would own.
Yeah.
And all the ideas would be theirs and all this stuff. And it's like I don't really need to be paid a few $100 to give ideas to one of the biggest corporations on earth, right?
Yeah.
So I declined to participate. I am now absolutely positive that the show in question was this Sugar. And I'm also astounded. I'm not going to spoil anything, but it's amazing to me that people were saying, "Oh, there's a huge reveal coming up in the show that turns everything upside down." And it's like, if you haven't actually figured out what that reveal is by the second episode, you are definitely not paying attention. But I haven't seen it all the way through, so I don't know how they're going to handle the rest of it. But Colin Farrell is terrific. I mean, I really, really enjoy watching him on screen. And Amy Ryan, who we don't get to see enough of on screen because I think she is also terrific. And she plays an aging punk rocker in this show, and she's pretty good. And Ben Mankiewicz has a small role in it where he basically plays himself
Yeah.
or me, depending on how you look at it. Because it takes place at the American Cinematheque. There are all kinds of, it's a film screening where he's interviewing legendary producer, whatever his name is, something Siegel, who's played by James Cromwell. Very good casting. Anyway, so the show is very interesting. It's over directed, in my estimation, but a lot of shows are these days because they have to buzz your eyeballs to make sure that you are paying attention at all times and not changing over to some other streaming service. So they get away, I think, with using massive amounts of clips from film noir movies
Oh.
because they're so subliminal that they're within the rights usage. It's like if you use less than like 2 seconds, you don't even have to pay for it. And they use them so quickly, like cutting them into action scenes and stuff. And, a lot. There are a lot of films that they used. I have a sneaking suspicion that they wanted to ask me, like, which of these movies are in the public domain so we don't have to pay for them.
Yeah.
But you can figure that shit out on your own.
You have a legal department.
Especially if you're one of the biggest computer corporations in the world. So
Yeah.
I didn't feel the need to assist.
So have you seen Ripley?
I have seen the entire series. Yes.
What did you think?
I had mixed emotions about it. I know that you love the fact that he was back to being Highsmith's sociopath in the film. My legs hurt watching the show because there was so much freaking walking up and down stairs in Italy, which is lovely to look at.
Yeah.
People were raving about what's interesting about that, and I'm not saying this with any authority, mind you, but people have raved so much about the visual look of that series that I wonder if they would feel that enthusiastic if it was AI, because a lot of that stuff was artificial intelligence. A lot of the backgrounds and things like that. Though, if you've watched the show, the whole scene where he disposes of the body out by the viaduct. That whole thing was done in a computer. There was no exterior scene. That was just created in the computer, which I don't really have any. It just occurred to me that after all of the hub over AI.
Well, that really actually makes me angry, and this is why. In Late Night with the Devil, which to me is
which I saw, and we can talk about that too. Yeah.
So we can talk about the A and I that. So do you want to finish? Sorry, did you want to finish up your thought?
No, I want to hear why the idea of AI and that makes you angry.
Okay, so in Late Night with the Devil, so if you don't know, the bulk of it is just basically a lost episode of a 1970s talk show. And when they go out to commercial, they have these little art cards, right? Which was typical of the time, to transition from the show into commercial. So there's 3 of them. Okay, those were partially composed with AI, and people were actually talking about boycotting the movie.
Oh,
for that. And it's just like, really?
Now, which
just, I mean, and there was so much art design and artists working on that film.
No, I thought all that stuff. I thought the recreation of a talk show from the 70s was perfect. It was brilliant. Yeah. I don't really care how it was done. It doesn't matter that much.
No, but literally, like I said, it was the 3 intertitle cards that take you out into the commercial.
How is it AI as opposed? You mean they talked it into the computer instead of illustrating it themselves?
Yeah, even though they still worked on it anyway. So they ran it through to try and get illustrations, because you want to do that. I mean, it's a small detail, but it is something that actually, and it looked really, and that's the thing. Those actually impressed me when I saw them, because they looked accurate to the period.
It's interesting. The only thing,
literally, it's like, really seriously, this is like, how much AI do you? I mean, in the Star Wars films, they're using footage of like Peter Cushing to put him into Rogue One. I didn't see y'all boycotting that film.
Yeah. It's very tricky, because obviously that's all just tools. Yeah. It's all just tools. And I don't really have a problem with that, especially when it comes to graphics, because to me, it's just like whatever the tool is that gets you a graphic that you need, that's fine. So therefore, is an exterior of a location in Italy by a viaduct, is that a graphic, or is that a location? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, I mean, if you can create it in a computer and trick people into thinking it's actually a location, and so much of that, it appeared to me to be computer enhanced imagery a lot of the time.
Oh yeah.
in Ripley. And my only complaint about the show, some of the performances were incredible. I love the inspector.
Oh, he's great. Yeah.
He is just fantastic. I liked the depiction of Dickie.
Hmm.
You know, he seemed like a legit interpretation of that character, and that actor John Flynn is kind of intriguing. Did you see The Outfit, the Mark Rylance movie?
No.
That was a pretty cool film. I recommend it. It's called The Outfit. It's about a very, very small film. It was made during COVID. Mark Rylance plays a British tailor or a cutter
Yeah.
who moves to Chicago and opens a haberdashery for gangsters in Chicago. And it's just a one set
Oh,
movie. It's very, very stagey, but Mark Rylance is the star, so it's really good. And that John Flynn is in that, and he's very good. Anyway, I'm not sure what I thought about Andrew Scott. I mean, part of the time I loved the performance because he just seemed so strangely sociopathic and weird. But then part of the time I was like, I don't know if this guy is carrying all 8 episodes of this show. You know,
yeah.
after a while, it was just like, and it was interesting to me how padded out it was. Like, you know, one episode is the disposal of the body.
Yeah.
One entire episode is just getting rid of the body.
Yeah.
And as a, I'm not sure how I felt about that. I mean, if it leads to more Highsmith adaptations, I'm all for it. You
I'm still
know,
holding out hope for the boy who followed Ripley. That's the one
yeah,
damn book of the
yeah. They
Ripley
will,
series that I
and
want
they
to see
could. Well,
done.
this is the thing. They could do it. You know, a series. They're clearly setting it up because they introduced the John Malkovich character at the end of the series.
Yeah. Who?
You know, which is going to lead to Ripley becoming an art forger and all of that. And but I question whether this guy can actually, whether audiences will stay with him for this long format storytelling.
Yeah, because I think that yeah. I mean, I'm not. The one thing I was going to say about it taking so long to deal with the body, because they kind of do that twice, is that one of the things, because I decided to reread the entire Ripley series, so I'm on the third book now.
Good for you.
But when I was rereading him, so one thing I really like about Patricia Highsmith is it's like, what the hell do you do with the body? You know what I mean? I mean, it's, you know what, you kill someone and then like there's something really, and and in a way it's kind of funny too, but there really is something about, I love that aspect of the Ripley stories, is the fact that Tom does these things and then it's like, and I was
You
saying
got,
this,
yeah,
and you got to deal with it. And
got to
then,
deal with it. You've committed the crime. Now you have to figure. I mean, that's what the whole thing is about, right?
yeah,
It's putting the reader in Ripley's shoes, and it's like, well, he had this moment where he lost his mind. Yeah, well, that's debatable whether he lost his mind or not when he kills these people. I mean, clearly Dickie is a premeditated thing, and
yeah,
that, you know, when he kills Freddie, it's like it's a spur of the moment thing, you know, where he
yeah,
makes this impulsive decision. But then, like, okay, now what? And so I get like they were going to do every step of the way. They were
yeah,
going to show you everything that goes into disposing of that body. But still, that was like 50 minutes.
yeah,
It was like a 50-minute show,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know. And it's just I'm hanging in there with it, and I'm not going to be critical entirely of the show, but it was hit and miss for me.
yeah. And you know, oh, sorry, I just talking about the whole thing. Since we're talking about the Ripley novels, I just love in the second one because once again, Tom sort of impulsively kills someone in his own house this time. It's actually really kind of hilarious. And my first reaction was like, "What the f, Tom?" And then it's like, "All right, you're a sociopath." But then what's really funny, so he buries the body once, but then like the police are coming, so he has to like move the body and get rid of it a second time. And I'm sorry, it's like hilarious. And then of course he drags someone else into helping him for the second one. It's just like,
Well, this is what made Highsmith so great. Is I mean, the black humor of those books is incredible. It's like,
Yeah.
so you want to be a master criminal? There's a lot of hard work and stuff that goes into that, you know?
I think Tom has a lot of luck. I'm not sure if I consider Tom a master criminal. I think he's got the luck of the devil. I mean, he is
Yeah.
smart and stuff, but he also has the luck of the devil. Tom is just like
Well, that
someone.
was one thing. Did you for a moment, not to spoil anything for people, did you for a moment buy the disguise when he has the interview with the inspector?
I feel like they could have done that better.
That's what I felt. I mean, they
Yeah.
tried to show you he's stage managing by playing with the lighting and everything, but
Yeah.
then the way they did it, you could clearly see him, and from the camera angle that was the inspector's point of view, it's like this guy's a cop and he doesn't realize he's talking to the same guy he already interviewed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah. That one I thought was, yeah, a little weak. But I like the fact that they made, I mean, she's still, I like that they made Marge dumpier, or I mean, it's as much dumpy as Dakota's, what's her name, can
As
be.
Dakota Fanning can be,
Dakota
yeah, but
Fanning
she's
can
not
be,
Gwyneth Paltrow.
but she's
Yeah,
not Gwyneth Paltrow because yeah, because like, yeah, I've just been thinking about Ripley a lot. I actually saw a really good video essay on YouTube where they were talking about the first two movies, the Talon Mr. Ripley and Purple Noon, and just the way that in the book Ripley has like a what's the word I want? An unstable self.
mm-hmm.
And in the way that in both those movies they wanted to categorize him and kind of like in the first one, okay, he's just a greedy guy that wants all this stuff. And then in the second one, they make him into this sort of more like closeted man that's sort of a tragic character. And I don't know. I don't really like The Talented Mr. Ripley. Like, I think as a movie, like, I get why people like it, but like, she had this clip of the director saying, I wanted to get to the heart of the story. And it's like, I mean, yeah, Tom's bisexual, but I don't think that that's a driving force of his personality. I just don't think his sexuality is that important. And also, he's bisexual, but he's also sort of, he's not very vested in sex, which is not uncommon
Right,
for people with
right.
psychopathy. So he's not ever in. So I was like, where are you getting like this tragic gay character? And also, I mean, he also murders two people. I'm sorry. I'm just
Yeah,
not going to be that empathetic towards him,
yeah. And
you
it's
know?
also kind of the humor of it to me, or the
Yeah.
humor and the tragedy of it is that he's willing to go to such extraordinary lengths to achieve such mundane things. He just wants to have this other life.
Yeah.
And it's so weird that he will commit these horrendous crimes to achieve it. I mean, that's why he's like a total psychopath.
Yeah. And I think also really importantly, too, is also Tom commits crimes just to commit crimes. Like
Yes.
when he's in New
Yes.
York, he's doing this IRS scam. He never cashes those checks. He does it for the thrill. And then after he gets this comfortable life, right? He gets Dickie's money, which is not a lot, but it's a comfortable life. And he marries this wealthy French woman. Then he gets involved with this art forgery thing.
Yeah.
And he says he doesn't really need the money. And that's always a thing. But that's actual dark triad behavior is that desire for those. It's sort of like
Yeah.
you see that in Saul and Better Call Saul too,
Yeah.
where there's times
And
he's
it's
just
so
doing stuff to
and
do
it's
it.
also interesting because in that sense, I see a lot of corollaries between the Ripley character and the Walter Neff character in Double Indemnity.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
not like Walter really cares that much about the sex, or he's that obsessed with this woman. He just wants to commit the crimes. That's what he
Yeah,
really wants to
yeah,
do. He wants to get away with it and prove that Barton Keyes is full of it.
yeah,
That you actually can get away with this stuff. But it's so great because, as you know, one of the greatest things about when people say if you're going to become this type of person, you have to be so expert with lying because you have to remember what you said, right? That's why it doesn't pay to lie, because if you start lying, you have to remember what you said. And at some point, you're going to forget. Those were the best moments in the Ripley show when he would slip up,
Yeah.
and it's like, oh, that wasn't what I said before or something, and all of that was very, very effective. We'll see where it goes. I wasn't totally familiar with this actor, Andrew Scott. I know he was on Fleabag and it was very popular in a couple of other things, but it seemed to me to be, and this is the thing, a very, very good, serviceable actor. But when you expect somebody to carry 8 hours of storytelling, and then there's going to be another season with another 8 hours of storytelling, that actually takes a very special performer.
Yeah.
To pull you. It takes Bob Odenkirk.
Yeah.
Or Ray Seahorn for that matter. Or Bryan Cranston to do all. You got to keep hanging in with them.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this guy, and the nature of the character being so guarded and so self-contained, if that's something that an audience will want to commit to.
Well, and I think that's part of the problem whenever they adapt Ripley, right? And I was talking to my mom about it. I wound up buying her all the books for Mother's Day. She likes crime fiction, so I thought I'll just get her all the books. But when you read, one of the things I said to my mom when I was talking about the Ripley novels is I find it kind of soothing in a way to be around Tom, because Tom is so like kind of shut down, and there's something like I find Tom really oddly relaxing because of that. But I totally understand that asking people to.
I'd like to see that on a book jacket. Oddly relaxing, Anne Hockens.
I think Patricia Highsmith would probably really liked that comment.
Yeah, I'm sure she would. I'm sure she would. And we won't get into the whole. You could write a master's thesis on trying to suggest that Patricia Highsmith is Tom Ripley.
Something, I find that kind of stuff like I'm a very like do the text.
Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
And also, I mean, some of the stuff I write, is not who I am. I mean, that's part. It's just like some of the like Andy Robinson, right? He played this totally sociopathic character. He's fantastic. He's a really nice guy.
It's called acting.
Yeah, yes. or Dan Duryea, right? Yeah. I mean, you could not be more opposite of your screen persona. It's the same thing with writers. I mean, writers. I just think that people just really want to turn writers into like crazy artists. I mean, so and that, I mean, when you sit down to write, you're creating a world, and of course, your ideas and stuff are in there, but that doesn't mean that. I mean,
of course, and yeah. it takes more discipline than anything else in the world to write novels.
Yeah,
and the fact that she did so many of them, that stands above everything else. Everything else you say about her is secondary to the fact that she produced this incredible body of work.
Body of work. Yeah. And it's just like Agatha Christie was like, she was the least, like she has one character. She did a self-insert character in some of her novels, who's a writer.
Did you happen to read Highsmith's diaries?
No, I have not.
The big volume of that came out. It's really interesting to see her, because she kept really good diaries, and I've been dipping into that. I read most of the early stuff when she went off from Texas, went off to New York to go to school, and kept a diary of all that. And it's interesting, not just from a writing standpoint, but from her figuring out who she was when she was in New York and her crushes on other girls in the class and stuff. It was very, very interesting, and you can see her discovering herself as a writer in these diary entries. But then, that's just all background to the books.
Yeah.
Because if you've read The Price of Salt, which they made into Carol the movie, like, do you need to read the diaries? The book is the end result of all of that.
Yeah.
So anyway, Anne, I got to go have a cocktail and eat dinner.
I was just wanted to say one more thing about the to tell in Mr. Ripley, the novel. And it's the one thing they never put into any of the adaptations that I'd always kind of wish it would get in there. It's just his friend Cleo in New York. He has like two friends in New York, and one of them is Cleo, who's just, and they have such an interesting little relationship. And it always kind of makes me, I mean, I understand that's something you would cut, but it's just, that's like one of my favorite parts of the book. It's just an insight into his character. And he found someone like,
well, they had a chance in this one, but
it was long enough to put Cleo
it was long
in there.
enough that Cleo could have been in it. Yeah, it very, very, and the fact that they cast Malkovich in the thing when he has played Ripley himself, you know,
I didn't. That threw me out of that moment.
I think they could have cast somebody else. It seemed to me to be a little bit of stunt casting. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, and that was probably, that really bothered me that they did that.
Because it was so great, because I love it when it's casting like the Italian inspector who you think you've seen before, but you can't place him. And he has such a vivid face and such an incredible presence that he commands the screen every second he's there. Then Malkovich shows up and it's like, that's John Malkovich.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and he does the John Malkovich thing, you know, which is to be kind of off-putting and creepy. And I thought that was a bit of a gag that didn't work for me. I find a lot of these shows suffer from that. That's why I'm kind of withholding judgment on Sugar to see how they, you know, as we like to say, how they stick the landing at the end. But I felt the same way watching the new Monsieur Spade thing with Clive Owen. It's like I'm buying it, and Clive Owen is an example of an actor who can carry 8 episodes of a show, right? You'll just watch Clive Owen. He is absolutely brilliant. But then in the last episode, they started bringing in these recognizable actors that were totally out of place. Alfred Woodard comes in the last episode, and it's like, what the hell is going on? I mean, this show just imploded. I didn't even finish the last episode. I was so furious with how they mucked it all up at the end.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I mean, that's my
we're
problem.
We're like longest episode ever at this point. I thought it was going to be shortest episode
I thought
ever.
I was like, oh my God, we're only going to be like at an hour. And then we started talking about Patricia Highsmith.
Then we got rolling there. Okay. And I'm going to lose the light. The light is fading here in my room, and I'm going to lose the light momentarily. So, good talking to you. And we're going to be doing this again pretty soon, I would think.
Yeah, 2 weeks. And just everybody knows, if you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe, share, so we can kind of get this out to more people. That would be really cool if you would do that.
And closing, the latest issue of the Noir City magazine is out. So people who have donated $20 or more to the foundation and signed up for the mailing list are in receipt of what I think is one of the best issues we've ever produced. Kudos to Imogen Smith and to Danilo Castro, my colleagues, putting that thing together, and Michael Cronenberg, and the print edition, which a lot of people are asking about, will be available either by the time this airs or shortly thereafter on Amazon. And as everybody knows, we don't get the money from the Amazon sales necessarily, but if you want to throw us 20 or more to promote the foundation or support the foundation, you will get this spectacular issue all about Los Angeles noir.
In digital.
In a digital format, yes. You can buy $15. You can buy the print edition, and not give any money to us, bastards. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Great. Okay. So I think that's everything. Yeah.
That's it.
Okay.
It wasn't a completely cat-free episode. I did see Charlotte or Emily or somebody lurk. Oh, there she is. I thought that was just a coat.
And you can't see her, but the other one's on the red pillow, but she's just out of frame.
Oh, okay.
And then that's my coat.
All right. Very good. All right. And I will see you very soon.
I will see you soon. Night, everybody.
Okay. Good night, everybody.